Welcome to AMM 245, Consumerism, Impact and Issues, to a video lecture on a historical perspective. Since the first recording didn't work out, let's try this a second time. So this is just a brief overview on a little historical perspective on how consumerism has evolved, because it kind of came in like three main waves. But let's look at how products and the needs for products and how they were marketed, how it evolved. So starting mid to late 1800s, we started seeing a growth of leisure activities. Before it was all about work, survival, and very, very practical approach to using products. So you would buy products to make things or to do things. It was very, very practical approach. So we start seeing this growth of leisure activities. So things that you don't have to do to survive or that you need for food, shelter, but it's for fun. So sports and leisure activities. So they're taking up more time. So this created a need. It created a need for more functional apparel that allowed for movement. Because before you were doing things that, required specific type of garments. So a lot of the garments and accessories and items that you had were very specific to what you did. But now that we have this growth of leisure activities, more on the, you doing sports and that requires mobility, a more functional apparel demand is created. And this is where we begin seeing the demand for things like sportswear and sports-related items. Also, this is the beginning, the birth of that preoccupation with more, the consistent thought of wanting more. So, in the late 1800s, in 1870, the first advertising agency was born. It was the NWA & Son, and they were located in Philadelphia. So just so you can get an idea, a lot of people know how cumbersome women's apparel was back in the day. So you would have corsets and petticoats and lots of layers. Well, just so you can see here, no joke, this is a bathing suit made out of wool. So I'm sure that number was fun to wear. But made out of wool, 100% wool, but it was actually used as a bathing suit. Also, this one here to the right basically is a tennis outfit. So less layers underneath and a little bit more mobility, believe it or not. So this was considered less cumbersome than the apparel worn typically in that day. So you can get an idea of how cumbersome that really was. So this, again, created a need, okay? Because they were starting to see more demands, finally you see the first department store, and it's Bon Marché, okay, in Paris. Now this is huge. You don't understand. Huge, because before you had like mercantiles, very small shops. You had peddlers. You did have catalog order as well, but things took forever to come in. To actually have products in front of you and have such an array, this was the first. This is a catalyst for consumerism, the department store, because it basically has everything you need for your home and family under one roof. Again, before it was like a mercantile and it was small. They would have some bolts of fabric so you can make clothes. They would have this, but the department store has clothes already made for you. It has items, and not just items that you need, which is typically what a mercantile would have. The department store now has stuff that you don't necessarily need. So this is where you first start seeing really the promotion of novelty items. So department store is a key ingredient to consumerism. Just the diverse array, and this is where you start seeing pushing that demand of wanting more items, because they're right there. So you're creating the demand as well. Also really working on display, not functional display, but display to entice you to go see what the items are and to want to buy them, all under one roof. Dream world of material luxury, so items that you could not afford but you want. This is where you start seeing it because it's right there in front of you. And it's designed, the way the placement of the product, this is where you first start seeing that kind of visual merchandising, because it's meant to entice shoppers. So you start really seeing promotion of novelty. And this leads to the early 1900s. We had the Industrial Revolution, and this is the first wave of the consumer revolution. There's three. The first wave, okay? Because we start seeing the implementation of shops, okay, of stores. It starts off with the department stores. Why? Again, because we now have a middle class. The Industrial Revolution brought jobs, there were factories, and a lot of people relocated. This is where you have urbanization taking place. A lot of items were mass produced. Clothes are now mass produced. It started obviously with uniforms for the war, but we now see mass production in apparel, and we now have people moving up, making more money. So we now start seeing the middle class. Before, you were either really wealthy or really poor. And this is the first time you really start seeing the middle class. So this is where the middle class is born. It's the Industrial Revolution. Now, the catalog had already existed, but it begins increasing in usage. So Sears and Roebuck and JCPenney's, I know it's kind of hard to think of them as successful because they're dying off. They'll be gone in the next 5 to 10 years. But believe it or not, they were very successful, and they really began increasing in orders around this time. They even had greater, I know it's weird to think about, but they actually had more variety in the catalog than they did in the store, in the department store, which is crazy to think about. But they did. You can order like fabricated, houses that they can put together. You can order anything under the sun under the catalog. Now, the thing is, now the need to present products in a very kind of favorable way, in an enticing way, starts increasing. Okay, so these are some pictures. So no joke, you can get like building plans to actually get a house. Okay, this happens to be a 6-room cottage. But yeah, if you get to see ads, old ads from Sears and Roebuck and JCPenney, they're really interesting to look at. So advertising is taking place. We already discussed that we had the first ad agency, right? So now with the Industrial Revolution, machinery, automation starts coming up. We now have new printing techniques. Okay, which is going to be huge for advertising. So you can now show colorful posters, and better printing quality shows the product in a nicer, flashier way. So that entices more people. Magazines start posing, having models pose in very alluring poses to, again, entice shoppers to want more. Newspapers also included project imagery. So really, the beginning of what you've seen now, where you have products that look really good on TV or look really good on print. So all the little tricks that start happening here, but just so you know, we have a lot of tricks, and we'll talk about it in advertising, but in the advertising section. But making hamburgers look really good, or a stack of pancakes by putting like cardboard round pieces of paper in between each pancake to make the stack look perfect. That's how you make it look perfect. And little tricks of the trade to make the items look better in print. And basically, they start really experimenting with the type. So the font, more bold fonts, simplified words, but very specific adjectives, the font style, the font size. And this is where we start seeing the use of emotional appeal. So they try to appeal to your emotions, which we see so much now, but back in the day that wasn't the case. So, tired, you're working a lot of people working a long hours. So are you tired? Then drink Coca-Cola. It's going to relieve exhaustion. So it really starts appealing to your emotions, like, yeah, I am tired, okay? So it really starts working on that. So again, we're still in the early 1900s, but we're heading into the 1920s. The need for more items intensifies. Dime stores do open because now we have inexpensive choices and a lot of practical consumer items and novelty items, but inexpensive. So the dime store is very successful when it comes out. Radio ads do start increasing, so more companies are paying for these radio ads. And they're not, before they were just selling products, now they're selling prestige. More is acquired, savings are reduced. We start seeing people spending more and more. Again, those leisure activities like horseback riding, etc., creates the need for more apparel and more clothes and going out into the theater and to these other activities. And again, requires more items, okay, more items to be produced. And if you noticed, a lot of people, you dress the same, and a lot of things look the same, but they had a very particular aesthetic that reflects the times. Now we start seeing the consumerism kind of spreading. It's not just for the wealthy, it's in the middle class is created, and now they're adapting it, but it's also crossing ethnic lines. So immigrants, we had a large group of immigrants coming in, had been coming in, and would be coming in at this time, and they're trying to fit in, and they're trying to adapt to the culture. So they're trying to fit in. So now we start seeing ads that are trying to appeal to them. Social classes, the ones right below, want to emulate the class above. Again, middle class is still growing, again, because of the it was created through the Industrial Revolution, and it continued to grow. And gender as well. Before we had very sex segregated ads, like for example, cigarettes used to be specifically male, strictly for males, tobacco. And then you started seeing more women smoking, and you'd have the filters and the holders specifically for women, for females, and it was marketed towards them, even though before it was specifically for males. Then, unfortunately, at the end of the 1920s, stock market crash, consumerism is interrupted, didn't stop, it was just paused. Think of it that way, just paused. In the 30s, early 30s, but again, because of the Great Depression after World War II, basically we're talking basics. It's about basics, it's about survival. Here's a good reminder of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So your physiological needs need to be met before your safety and security, then love and belonging, then self-esteem, and then self-actualization. And the theory is you're never fully here, but that's your goal. That's what you strive for. But this is not even important. It's not even in your radar if you don't have food or water, right? It's not in your radar. So you need to get your basic needs met before you can go to the next level in the pyramid. So at this point, we're at the bottom level, because the Great Depression was so bad. These are pictures, not renditions or someone's interpretation. It was bad. So when you hear that the Great Recession was as bad as the Great Depression, no, it was not. Of 2007, no, it was not. It was not like this. This was bad. Okay, so it doesn't even come close. It was bad, just not as bad as the Great Depression. Okay, so now we're moving on to the 40s, and from between the 40s and 70s, that second wave of consumerism hits. Now we have newly affluent crowd, and they really want to showcase their wealth. And middle class continues to grow. We see now more working women, which means higher incomes, higher household incomes. I should stress household incomes, because now more women are starting to work. Products expand to big ticket items, so we call those consumer durables. And we start seeing competitive consumption, which is keeping up with the Joneses. So you're trying to appeal, and for appearances, you're spending more money in acquiring items specifically for appearances. Okay, consumer credit. Once the late 70s end and we're heading into the 80s, consumer credit. This is where consumer credit is extended to the masses, and this is where we start seeing debt accumulate in the 80s. We do have protests, and this is where we begin seeing a lot of the protests against consumerism. It started in the late 70s and really started pushing hard in the 80s and going into the 90s as well, and it hasn't stopped since. Vanity, the exhibition of vanity does increase. Advertisers do use envy. They're really appealing to your envious side, jealousy, into the ads. Some people don't like that. It's very manipulative, but they're, again, emotional appeal. They really want you to create that desire to want the stuff that you don't have. So new impact, things like holidays, like traditions like holiday gift giving, where you have to give stuff on holidays, and that's why everybody stresses out. This is where it starts. Courtship, so like, engagement, what is the informal rule? It's 2 months salary for an engagement ring, for example. So this is where we start seeing these kind of things happen that are developed, these norms and customs, and it creates expectations, and it creates a lot of desire, and it also creates stress for people that can't afford it, right? So consumerism continues to evolve. Cosmetic upgrades, this concept really starts sinking in every category, whether it's fashion, apparel, accessories, housewares. You see it now. Now it's like granite countertops and the backsplash, and you have to have stainless steel appliances. If you see why I have white appliances, I don't care, although we're switching over to black stainless steel because my appliances are dying, but I really don't care if it's trendy or not. But I notice when people go in to see houses, as soon as the kitchen and they see any white appliance, oh my gosh, it's so outdated. There's stuff that had retiled, new stuff, and unless it has granite countertops, I don't want to look at it. And stainless steel appliances, but 20 years from now, 10, 20 years from now, that's going to seem outdated. That's why we have popcorn ceilings. Do you understand? That was so popular in the 80s, and now we hate it. We're paying a lot of money to remove it. But that was super popular. People wanted it. If they didn't have popcorn ceilings, it wasn't trendy. So be careful when you get too trendy. And all these cosmetic upgrades, it starts increasing, and it's more money that has to be spent. The upgrades, even automakers. I mean, an upgrade on a big ticket item like a car, and every year there's a new model. That just says it all right there. Middle class restaurants, things like snacking, fast food, convenient. This opens up at this time. Having toiletries, makeup, a lot of stuff, small item stuff, as well as big ticket items that are really marketed to the masses. So things, big expensive items like a piano or expensive elaborate toys. This is where we really start seeing it develop and grow at an exponential rate. Also, we start seeing, going into the 80s, a higher rate of divorce. So now we start seeing households with one income. Child rearing. So people are paying for other people to raise their kids because they're working. A lot of families need dual incomes at this point. We see the beginning of that. So they have to pay for someone to, raise their kids, basically. Take care of their kids, but in a sense, raise them. Now we're paying attention to, are you satisfied at work, and working hours, and this is for the middle and lower class. We start seeing a lot of that, and upper class as well, as typically their payback is so high that they're not necessarily unhappy with it. It's the middle class and lower class that starts questioning, am I getting back what I'm putting into when it comes to satisfaction at work? We did start seeing kind of being overburdened, a lot of repetition, a need to display creativity, the need to express yourself because they can't really do it at their jobs and show success. And this is what they claim they think is where it really pushed conspicuous consumption, that lavish spending on goods and services for the main purpose of displaying income or wealth. So the term came around the turn of the 20th century. By Thorstein Veblen. He was an economist and he was a socialist, and he coined the term, and it's been used ever since. And it really started describing consumerism back in the 60s and continued on. The third wave of consumerism hits in from the 70s to 2008. No increase in leisure, but increasing in inequality. We hear that a lot. Conspicuous spending at the top. So, you see certain people purposely showing you their Louis Vuitton bag and their Chanel, and they really have to showcase their wealth. Mass media has as king and really showcasing mass expectations, advertisements, television shows showing products. They don't necessarily use a generic name for soda. They show you the brand unless they don't want to give approval. And start throwing in advertisements within the movies and within the shows. They're really doing market product placement to really showcase the products. Again, credit, new tools for spending. Now we have ATM cards, and now that's evolved to Apple Pay, automatic pay, which is scanning. We have the chip reader. Then it's going to be, like scanning of your eyeball. Next, you just blink, and that's it. And that's where we're at right now. You blink, and there it goes. You paying. In fact, that's the new commercial from Apple, is Apple Pay, is that you just, you're walking around and all these goods and products come to you. So new tools makes it easier. It also makes it easier you not to see the money coming out of your bank until you get your statement, and in which case you see that lovely negative number, which some people do, and they get depressed. If it stays in the positive, you're good. But if it goes into that negative, it's a problem. People that tend to have that problem over and over. The aspiration gap starts increasing. So now it's keeping up with the Kardashians or the Gates, Bill Gates, not the Joneses, which is more attainable. So that makes it hard and creates higher levels of dissatisfaction and higher levels of depression. So comparisons used to be with people of your own earning category, just on the upper end of it. But now marketers, and marketers with a specific, target income bracket, but now the comparisons are to people 5 times your earning potential, or your earning capacity at the point. So obviously you can expect disappointment. So 2000s, they came up with a moniker. A lot of students don't know about this. Bourgeois, bohemian, bobos. I know it's a weird word. Boboism is basically able to spend a lot of money without really apologizing for it, on necessities, not luxuries necessarily, but expensive necessities. So things like gourmet coffee, okay, or expensive water, good quality water, or I don't know what the good quality water is, but there, that's what it is. Writing instruments and timepieces, so watches and pens. Hiking boots, because you're a hiker and they're very expensive, but they're like an investment. So that's kind of they're seeing it. Their investment, artisan free trade chocolate, fair trade, not free trade, sorry, fair trade artisan chocolate. Okay, so it's okay to spend a lot of money on that. Okay, not now Prada heels or Louis Vuitton. No, not so much. But these kind of consumers feel very spiritual. They're definitely not religious, but they're very spiritual, but very informed. They're very informed when it comes to what items are there. So currently, where we're at now, and we'll continue throughout the quarter to talk about it, but social media is king, and the influence and the celebrities, the pop culture, huge, 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 I'll say it one more time, huge influence, constant stimulation, constant product placement, because you young millennials and younger, you're avoiding the traditional viewing experience. You're not watching it as it airs on TV. You're skipping, you don't have radio, everything's through your tablet or smartphone, so therefore they need to reach you somehow. So you're more constant product placement, more promotions, banners, pop-ups. They're trying to reach you one way or another. And wealth is still consistently being showcased. Please do read the article that's posted on Blackboard. And lastly, so overall effects, we do have more debt. We'll talk about it in the saving and debt section. But just so you understand, yes, we do have more debt in this pursuit of keeping up with these appearances. Okay, so 3 waves of the consumer movement. Okay, thank you for listening, and I will see you in class.